Congrats on getting beyond $1 million. What got you here won't always get you there. This is a podcast for entrepreneurs who want to reach beyond their 7-figure business and scale to 8, 9, and even 10 figures. I'm Brad Weimert, and as the founder of Easy Pay Direct, I have had the privilege to work with more than 30,000 businesses, allowing me to see the data behind what some of the most successful companies on the planet are doing differently. Join me each week as I dig in with experts in sales, marketing, operations, technology, and wealth building. And you'll learn some of the specific tools, tactics, and strategies that are working today in those multi-million, 8, 9, and 10-figure businesses. Life can get exciting beyond $1 million. Yanik Silver, always good to see you, man. I appreciate you carving out some time.
Yeah, great to see you too, Brad. I think last time I saw you, you were in a green Speedo, jumping off of the side of a boat that we were both on into frigid Arctic waters.
Yeah, that would be probably accurate. And I think that the temperature of that water, we were told, was actually like 31 degrees because it is on the perimeter of Antarctica and the salt water allows it to get below freezing.
Yeah, it was actually invigorating. I know you do a lot of interesting stuff, so you probably didn't find it too cold.
Well, you know, what's crazy is I do a lot of cold plunges. That's like part of my routine.
Yeah.
But my cold plunges are normally sort of mid 40s, which is distinctly different from 31.
In a Speedo too, yeah.
In a Speedo, a Maverick Speedo as it is, as it was. And they actually tied a rope around your waist with a little harness because they're concerned about people seizing up or not being able to get back to the boat. Yeah, totally. I was impressed with the sheer number of people on the group. So it was 60 people on this boat that you organized. And by you, I really mean your cousin Sophia.
That's right, yeah.
And I was surprised. It was probably, I mean, I feel like it was 50 of them that jumped in the water.
Yeah, we had a good group. Yeah, it was pretty awesome. And it was quite a incredible feat to get all of us there during all the things that we had, all the hoops we have to jump through and everything happening. But it was awesome. Yeah, that had been on my list for quite a long time.
Yeah, I had a hard time saying no to it. It was the tail end of COVID, or the COVID intensity, and Chile was, I mean, of the most militant of the countries to work with relative to COVID.
Yeah, we broke the all the protocols that they had, and it's very hard to keep entrepreneurs under a set of rules and regulations.
Yeah, no question about it. Well, I want to get to Maverick, but a little background. So I know, and I think a lot of people know you because you got into the internet and sort of Web 1.0 and sort of made a name for yourself in marketing there. And that's how I found you. And I probably came across you not because of that, but in, I think maybe 07, 08 when Maverick Business Adventures started. Yeah. So, and that was like that's right up my alley. So I want to talk about that, but why don't you give me a little backdrop on the beginning for you in the internet world?
Yeah. So I feel like the story always has to start with my dad and my mom immigrating from Russia with my grandmother and me when I was about 3 years old, and $256 or so in his pocket. He always corrects me. I get the number wrong, but somewhere in that neighborhood, and not much use of the English language and so forth. And as you know, very entrepreneurial kind of thinking, you kind of do whatever it takes. And he ended up starting a medical equipment sales and service company pretty early on, maybe about 6-7 months after he came here. He was working at a local hospital, and they were threatening to fire him if he didn't stop moonlighting on the side, doing some repairs for other doctors. And so I grew up, he did the thing that, you know, all of us entrepreneurs do at one point, is decide to take our own fate into our hands. And so I grew up in a family business, and working in a family business, you basically get to do everything and anything. And the deal was at 14, I started telemarketing. And at 16, I only got a car if I went out and cold called doctors. And so my dad's like, yeah, Mr. Yanik, go make some sales. And so as a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, I'm talking to 50-year-old docs, 60-year-old doctors. Like that's a pretty good trial by fire. And you know, anyone that's done cold calling or any kind of sales like that, it kind of sucks. And very, very much, it just wasn't, it's just not that fun, but you slog through it and you get better at it. And I had ended up selling an entire surgery center to one of my doctor clients, and we became friends. And he gave me a Jay Abraham tape, a Jay Abraham, Tony Robbins tape. And it just like turned the lights on about this whole idea of like direct response marketing and optimization. And I'm like, holy shit, this is amazing. Like you could have somebody like, raise their hand or buy something if you wrote a great letter or a great sales ad or just something. And it was, it just turned my world around. And then I started studying, learning everything I possibly could about marketing, especially direct response marketing, copywriting. And it was just fascinating to me that again, you could use words and then have people take an action. And it changed my dad's business too. Like we went from a little national or a little regional player to a national player because of that. Like, but I'd bring him these ads, these big long form ads. He looks at it. He's like, nobody's going to read all this. I'm like, oh, let's just try it and see what happens. And we were selling very sophisticated pieces of medical equipment in that way. And this was like 97, 98, 99, and the internet was just starting to kind of become more commercially viable. And I realized that at first I thought I was going to take over my dad's business, and I'm like, I feel like I want to do my own thing. And so I ended up first working with doctors who were some of my clients and helping them with their marketing for their practice. And then I ended up leaving my dad's company, which was a hard decision. And then the internet, like literally at 3:00 in the morning, I came up with this idea for something called instant sales letters. And they're little fill in the blank sales letter templates, and got to work on them. Didn't know how to put up my own website, but didn't really matter. Just figured out what I need to do for it. And then I was on track to do 6 figures. And then people were like, wow, how'd you do that? Could you help me do that too? And so I started teaching people how to take their information, their knowledge, and start selling it online. And that's where really the whole digital marketing, internet marketing thing started blossoming.
And what's the time frame of that? So, first of all, like, how did you sell instant sales letters?
What's that? Do we still sell it?
No, how did you sell them? So this is 2000, you said?
Yeah, 2000. It was just via email, the biggest way that we sold instant sales letters was started building up an affiliate network. And at one point I had 40,000 affiliates that were signed up that could promote it. And I love, we can talk about partnerships and things like that, but affiliate marketing is an interesting way where you're really you're kind of borrowing the credibility or traffic or the a list of other people and then paying them a commission based on sales. And so it was, at one point, like I said, 40,000 affiliates, and it was nice because a lot of people who bought the product then became an affiliate for it, and they found it helpful. And we would have people just adding it to their website or adding it to emails or promoting it. And that was one of the key ways that we sold it. And then people started coming up and asking me, hey, how'd you do that? And can you help teach me how to do that?
How did you get those people? I mean, so 2000, no website. Now, in fairness, email marketing.
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Well, we had a website. Yeah, I just didn't know how to put it up. So
I got it.
I found someone that put it up for me. So we had the website. I think the first sales just came from actually Joe Vitale was really a key person that helped. He put it out in his little newsletter. And I remember waking up one day and I had orders, and I hadn't, you'll like this as a merchant guy. I hadn't connected my merchant account yet to my online order processing. So I was getting orders. I couldn't charge anyone, but they had inputted their credit card. So we had real orders, and it was just awesome to wake up having, $30, $40 orders sitting there. It's the whole make money while you sleep kind of promise that you hear, and is actually happening. And so that was like, as soon as you see that, there's so much momentum and energy of like, oh wow, this thing worked, and it was just so much fun. So then it was, let's add to it.
Yeah, and I mean 2000, 2001, being in the information product space, like that space has existed for decades, right, or beyond, right? Oh yeah, I mean Tony Robbins was sort of people look at him as the on the forefront of personal development, but really you back out further than that and you have, Think and Grow Rich and writing books. Decades and decades earlier. But today the ability to sell information has definitely been democratized because of the internet. And when you jumped into it, that was kind of the beginning, right? That was, people weren't doing that yet.
I thought I was late because I had been, created some friendships with people that were already doing it online. I remember going to a conference, I think it was 2001 in Boulder. This guy named Jonathan Mizell. I think you know Mizell. I can't remember if you guys know him. Okay, so Mizell was like, he was like him and Corey Rudel, Declan Dunn, Marlon Sanders, like that kind of group. Like they had been working 94 in some cases, 95, 96. Wow. Way early. And that's why, I thought I was late, but it was really a perfect wave that was starting to bubble up. And I, that waking up at 3:00 in the morning, a lot of people would just go back to bed, but I literally woke up and started working on this project for instant sales letters. And I went to bed with a question, which was, how do I create a fully automatic website that makes me money while I sleep and is incredible value to people? And so I really think your questions dictate your answers. And I literally remember poking my wife with my finger. I'm like, Miss, wake up. I have a great idea. She's like, oh my God, please just go back to bed. And so, but I got up and started working on it, and you just never know where something's going to take you. And those little beginnings you always have to start somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I think that one of the things that I love about people's entrepreneurial stories is are finding those sparks. And if you're not careful as you get older and you allow life to get more complex and suck you in different directions, you can lose those sparks. And chasing them, getting out of bed at 3 a.m. to pursue it is frequently the difference between execution on an idea or complacency.
Yeah, it's one of those things too, as like you said, the complexity of as things grow, it's interesting to see. Like my favorite recent project, and maybe we can get into it a little bit, is this cosmic journal that I created. And it came from one of those sparks of just following, like not knowing exactly what something's going to lead to. And so many times as entrepreneurs, especially if you've been around the block a bit, it's always like, okay, well, how is this going to monetize, or how is this going to be, a real business, and what's the real, what's the vision and the framework for it? What are you going to do with it? But sometimes it's just worth pursuing, like whatever you're curious about or whatever you're intrigued by, and wherever maybe even your heart just kind of pulls you along into, and not like allowing that just joy of figuring out stuff and not doing it for, like, it has to be a $5-10 million business. Like, it could just be something that you pursue and you see what happens. And for me, that was this cosmic journal project where every single day for 108 days, I just illustrated a page that was a journal. And then now it's turned into a very cool published book and a set of cards. And I see there's a lot more potential to it too. But it was just truly just following your curiosity and your interest.
Yeah, those are, that's one of the things that I like about you. And it's a through line through the businesses that I see you involved in today. Was that a development throughout your life, or did you find that to be the case earlier on as well?
Yeah, I think that I've gotten better and better at it. I call it the cosmic alarm clock, of like listening to that little voice, and that little voice gets either louder, and then you answer it, or you hit snooze and put it away. And it's usually this, just little, I don't know, it could start off as like a little nudge of either being annoyed or frustrated about something or depressed, or it could be there's something else to look at. So, when I mentioned leaving my dad's business, that was probably one of the first pieces of that, of really following your heart and following that through line, as you mentioned, because it'd be a lot easier to just stay in that family business and just follow that through. But I just had to pursue what I felt was this interesting little nudge of like, all right, now I feel like there's something here, and the internet is that vehicle for it. And then continually just like putting out stuff. So like instant sales letters then turned into other people being like, oh, can you help me do this? And then that turned into just the underground, which became a pretty iconic event that we held for 10 years, which was doing things completely different than others. So whereas the internet marketing world sort of exploded, you'd have a lot of seminars that were very similar, and all the same people on stage, all talking about how to make money online, and it was all the same stuff. And they were making their money by selling how to make money online stuff. And I'm like, it'd be really interesting to just bring in people that were real world, like just doing it, and then have a fun element to it, this experiential element of underground and the spy related theme. And so I'll just pursue stuff that I'm like, gets me excited. And, I think it's going to be fun. And I think that there'll be something there. And then Maverick was another through line of that, that just became, I asked myself a really simple question about 14 years ago, which was, am I happy? Would I be happy doing what I'm doing 10 years from now? And outside looking in, everything is great, making a lot of money from the online marketing, digital stuff, great family, driving a hot sports car, all the things that you kind of like look at as, okay, the success metrics. But when I was really honest in my journal, the answer was no. And it was a hard no, because not a hard no, like a big glaring no, but a hard to get to that no, because I'd show up at conferences or other events and I might not even be speaking there. And people would be like, dude, Yanik, you changed my life. I sell guitar lessons now online because of you. And I'm financially free because of it. Or I sell, whatever. And so it was really difficult, because it wasn't like it was such a terrible thing. I was helping so many people, but it didn't feel like the ultimate expression of who I was and what I could be doing. And so then that led to Maverick, and continuing to just follow this intuition and see what opened up.
Yeah, I want to know about the collision or overlap, however you want to look at it, between that and sort of financial goals or monetary aspirations for a business. Like what is success? What was success for you in 2007, and what is success today? How has that changed?
Yeah, good question. So originally, maybe a little bit further back than 2007, I had set a goal. So in my journal, one of my very first journals, I wrote, I get rich by enriching others 10x to 100x in return for what they pay me. So that's been always the sort of the guideline, right? Like, and I feel like, and I've learned this from some great mentors. You were mentioning like Tony Robbins, and then you go back and it's Think and Grow Rich and so forth. And I was really enthralled by personal development very early on. Like I've been listening to tapes of, I don't know, like Earl Nightingale or Jim Rohn and this other guy named Foster Hibbard that not many people know about. Like, but people like that. And I also was a ice hockey player, and my buddies would get in the car and they'd be like, dude, what are these tapes? I'm like, don't worry, you're not going to like these. But I, just like, I think Brian Tracy said, make your car a university on wheels. And I really took that to heart by just being like, I'm just going to listen to this stuff and see what happens with it. So my original goal was I wanted to become a millionaire by age 30. And so that would have been 2003, I think. I have to think about I think that is 2003. So I didn't do that, but I hit it at age 31. And it wasn't like the angels started singing from the heavens and like there wasn't like this magical thing that happened. It was just like, oh, all right. I guess that was it. And then, as most people would do, you set the next goal. And the goal was, I want to be a decamillionaire by age 40. And because it just felt like that's the next thing you do. You make a bigger goal. And so during this transition period, so 2008, I think, is when I started Maverick, and that started asking those questions, like these deeper sort of, am I happy? And so that led to these three interconnected circles. Originally, it was a $, a happy face, and a heart. So the three sort of the Venn diagram, as I've now learned that's what it's called. I just thought there were three circles and they interconnected. So, but that was what Maverick's original sort of essence was, and kind of still is. Though we recently changed it. It's been a big change, but a small change, but it was a big change. Was we changed the $sign to a tree, and the tree represents growth, like personal growth and business growth. So now, but it's still growth, impact, and fun. So that essence has remained the same. But it was really interesting. So I had maybe 7 or 8 projects that all hit the 7-figure mark in cumulative sales, without a business plan, without really doing anything aside from just following what I was interested in. And I put out the next product or next thing that I was excited by. And then so Maverick was the first time that I'm like, okay, this is where I'm most happiest. I'm going to hang out with other entrepreneurs. We're going to combine it with business. We're going to combine it with some sort of charity and impact element. And we're going to, have these amazing adventures. Like, what could possibly go wrong? And so the very first trip was a Baja dune buggy trip. Ended up losing $40,000 on it.
Oh.
I'm like, whatever. It's an investment. And then after about $400,000, my wife's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I didn't have a very good answer for her. Aside from, I felt like there was something here, something bigger. And so during that period, I hit my 40th birthday, and inside my journal, I had written like what I wanted my sort of ideal 40th birthday to be like. I had that $10 million in the bank that I mentioned as my next goal. I was like, I think I wrote like I was hanging out with some local hockey players as part of the birthday. I was like some local pros. I think I wrote like I was driving a Fisker Karma car. And so it was interesting. I showed my wife the page, and she's like, "So are you upset that you didn't hit these things?" And I thought about it for a moment, because before this point, I'd write down goals and they'd come together like that. Goal to be a millionaire by 30, even though it became by 31, but it still showed up. And then other things. I thought about it. I'm like, no, I'm not, because I feel like I'm more into what is the intention behind each of these. And so the money in the bank or the money represents working on projects that I want to do with people that I want to do them with, and pursuing things that I'm really excited by. The car, I was actually glad that I didn't get a Fisker Karma. That ended up being a bit of a I don't know, not quite a lemon, but it was a interesting car. I don't think it was quite as good as originally. And then this whole idea of like hanging out with interesting people like these professional hockey players or so forth. I actually was on my 40th birthday. I was at Mojave Desert watching Virgin Galactic roll out their spaceship because I'm one of those ticket holders. And then also like I had been invited by Branson to go onto a safari the next month. So I'm like, that was even better than I could have imagined. So then it really led me to this notion of like intentionality was more important to me than a very specific goal of a dollar amount or something like that. And everyone has their own goal setting and whatever they use. Like originally it was goal setting was that specific thing. Then it became or better or faster. So then I could allow some more of sort of the universe to work in its favor instead of me being so stuck on how this has to happen. And now it's just more like the intentionality of what I want to see and less about a specific outcome.
Could you frame that as your goals are around your own behaviors as opposed to the outcome?
My goals now are just more around like, how do I want to feel? What I want. It's more about like being than doing. And that sounds kind of trite, but that's where I am right now.
Yeah. Well, the irony in that and the interesting thing about that is in terms of community, which is one of the things that I think of you for, it's very effective because it attracts like-minded people. One of the things that stands out from, so I'll give a little bit of frame on my perspective on Maverick. So in 2008, I think I saw a landing page that was Maverick Business Adventures and Yanik Silver. And it was, like 6 trips and 6 pictures of these trips with different price points. I don't even, maybe there was a membership price and a different price if you weren't a member. I don't remember, but they were all probably 10, 11, 12 grand a piece. They were all out of my price range in 2007. And I thought, man, that's fucking badass. I want to go on these trips with other entrepreneurs. And I was really just getting started really in sales, not even like in my own business, but I was still a 1099 salesperson. And, these are the trips that you're referencing where you had cumulatively lost $400,000. Yes?
Yeah, those are the trips. And I have a few members that are early on, like one especially, one of our buddies, who I think too, Craig Hanley. He's like, thanks so much for helping finance some of the best vacations I've ever had. I'm like, no problem.
So fast forward from 2007 to 2022.
Yeah.
Or 2008 to 2022. So 14 years later, Maverick 1000 to me gets clumped in sort of to this mastermind group category where you have, things like YPO or EO or War Room or Maverick 1000.
Yeah.
And we could name a bunch of others that kind of fit that build. But the general construct is entrepreneurs getting together to help with each other's businesses, sort of. But one of the things that stands out about Maverick 1000 is the intense continuity and integrity of shared values. And it's because it's very clear what the Maverick value set is. And that is not the same in really any of the other groups. And I think it's an interesting discussion point because that's also true of any business, right? So businesses that have a very strong ethos, you can feel and you can identify. When did you put that in place? So like you mentioned your 3 interconnected circles.
Yeah, the Venn diagram.
Yes. And so that started right from the beginning?
That started right from the beginning. Yeah, that was the impetus of my question of like, what would make me happy essentially. And it was those 3 circles. And then, so from the very beginning, that was the interconnection point. So the essence has always remained the same, like you're saying, the ethos. And that's been that continuity for sure. And it was like-minded entrepreneurs who want to grow and then also make a difference either individually in their company and collectively using their brain power and resources and so forth. And then have some fun together. Like if you were stuck in an elevator with any member for multiple hours, you'd be like, wow, this guy's a really interesting person, or this gal is a really intriguing person. And so that's who we attracted, because that's what I wanted. So I was scratching my own itch in a way. And so I had wanted other entrepreneurs to go hang out with and enjoy opportunities of doing cool things. And it was so originally, like you said, Maverick Business Adventures, that was the name of it. It's still the official name of the company, but it's Maverick 1000 because when things were going sideways, and this was a really difficult period because it really forced me to just like stand back and look. Like I said, I had 7, 8 projects all hit the 7-figure mark. And this was the first thing that just quote unquote wasn't working. And I was like, what is going on here? And I was so committed to it. Like I'd be cutting off stuff from the other business because it wasn't in full alignment with who I was or what I wanted to do. Like, I'd be cutting back on projects that were making me really, really good money. And my wife even reminded me, I think the other day, she's like, you're, what is wrong with you? Like, why did you cut, whatever we were doing? And I'm like, I just, wanted to be all in on where we were. And so it was a really difficult time because so many times as entrepreneurs, our self-worth is connected to our net worth. Our identity is so deeply linked in that way. And so if things aren't going well in your business, then it really hit me hard. Like I started studying personal growth when I was 17. So I had been doing this stuff for a long time. And I thought I had really, worked through so much of it. And then when things weren't going well, I'm like, holy shit, like I need to start from bedrock again. Like, what does it mean to have a good day? What does it mean to have a good week? And it was just coming back to stuff that wasn't related to the business because I couldn't totally control that. I could control myself and what would it look like to have a good day? And it was just simple stuff. Like, what are you grateful for? Like all the stuff that everyone's heard of before, but it was really making sure that I was hitting that like movement, like making sure I was moving my body every single day. So it became these 9 M's. And so, meaning like coming up with like, or so what went well for the day, what, the movement, mastery, like what is the thing that I wanted to continue learning or growing on, even mentoring or being a mentee was like one of them. And then magic was another one. I have a blog post that was all about this. And it was just really powerful where, again, having a good day led to a good week. And then I slowly started reworking my identity of who I was. During this time, I also ran into a guy named Kamal Ravikant, who I think you know Kamal, right, Brad?
I do, yeah.
So, and Kamal's book was Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. And, many years ago, if you would have kind of thrown that book at me, I'd be like, this is silly. But it was, this venture-backed CEO in Silicon Valley. And so he's, having these extreme bouts of depression and even suicidal thoughts. And I'm like, okay, I can learn from this. And So like things like that. And it started building up this framework. So almost going out of business helped me to create a framework that I call the Evolved Enterprise. And it was also meeting people like Richard Branson that had a piece of the puzzle, but then also like some unknown icons, or not as well known icons who had other pieces of this puzzle. And it became this framework, so that the three circles are still in the middle, but then it became the next ring out was you. So evolving you. So it was really deep work, like even like shadow work, like looking at stuff that we didn't want to necessarily maybe look at, that are things that we don't throw out to the world, especially not on social media or anything like that, but like looking at things like, your shadow aspects, and then looking at like truly like what are your gifts and how do you apply them? And then from that, the next ring out was cause, like what's the biggest why? Like, why are you doing it? And that's when, really changed things around to what we're doing. I remember asking, I'm a big journaler still. I love journaling. I think it's one of the great success principle foundations. And one of the things I asked in my journal was my 111-year-old self. I said, what do I need to know? And I answered as my 111-year-old self, and also using my non-dominant hand. So using I'm right-handed, so I use my left hand. And the answer was light 1,000 suns. We each have the potential to light another 1,000 suns. And so that was a huge sort of, I think, trajectory of what we were doing and moving towards. So it became less about, we're going to do these incredible adventures, but more about like, how do you evolve these entrepreneurs so that they can fully be sons? And what does that look like? And still about the experience. Sometimes it's about the adventure, but it's more about what does that evolutionary growth look like? And it has to start with me first as well. And so that's why I changed the name to Maverick 1000. And so in our diagram, so you, then cause, like what's the biggest why? And I realized my why wasn't to build an adventure travel company. It was to change the way business is played. And it was a lot different than let's build an adventure travel company for entrepreneurs. And then the next ring out became the creation, the community, and culture. And so that became the framework for Evolved Enterprise. And then when we changed that, we had going from a negative kind of trajectory to actually being in the black and growing a company and making it work. So it was quite a big turnaround for sure, when you connect it to the ethos and the mission and that purpose.
How do you protect those values and the ethos and make sure that it continues on?
Well, I think I love where things sort of organically show up and they're good stories for what those values are. And you want to move them forward and continue sharing them and highlighting them. And then there's other times where it's more systematic, like even, how do you keep that group cohesiveness, that they understand that this is what we're about. So we, as a membership group, it could be anyone that with a check could come in, but we really make it that the members vote on new members. So if we have the right core group of members first, then institutionally we can add new members by them saying yes or no. So that's one way. So I think it's kind of a mix of structure and then also being open and aware of when something might just show up that really fulfills your core values, your ethos there, and you want to highlight that and celebrate it. So, so growth, impact, and fun. So for instance, the Speedo, right? So we started off this conversation talking about you and the Speedo and jumping out. So the Speedo started very organically, haphazardly. Was during the underground seminar. I had someone came up. They ran a swimsuit e-commerce store, and she handed me a green Speedo with Maverick on the ass and my initials embroidered, YS. I'm like, thank you. I appreciate it. And a Speedo, like, unless you're in great shape, like most people do not rock a Speedo. It's pretty,
not flattering.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if you're like really in bad shape, then you can rock it. But so I'm like, okay. And I love, I think it's funny. And so I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to, like maybe a week or 2 weeks later, we were running a trip where it was a 200 mile an hour racing adventure, like to try and get to 200 miles an hour. And you work your way up to it the whole day. So like you're learning how to turn at high speeds, or you're doing these other things. And you got like this assortment of awesome supercars. And and we rented out a runway, like an airport runway to do this on. And it was really an interesting trip. And then so I had my Speedo on underneath my clothes the entire day. And by the way, it's very, very, very uncomfortable to wear a Speedo all day under your clothes. And so you get 3 tries to go 200 at the end once you put all these skills together. And so I hit like 197, 198. I'm like, okay, I need to get more aerodynamic. And I throw off all my clothes and I just got my Speedo on, my racing shoes and my helmet. I'm like, all right, let's go. And I jump in the Super Leggero, and dude, you get a professional racer too as your co-driver. And the guy's like, "What the heck? Like, what is wrong with you?" I'm like, "Let's go, we're making it happen." And so I ended up hitting 200 on that, and so then that became part of the culture in some way and the lore, and so that's part of the magic and mischief, I think, and so that became a little more institutionalized then.
I love that. Well, those are also things that people rally around, and they're things that, that happened organically over time, but there's certainly things that you can embed into any community, creating unique experiences that people remember. And part of Maverick in general is this never ending injection of what you all refer to as magic, which are really unique, unusual experiences that then create unique environments for people to be themselves, and people remember that shit. It's important.
100%. And where I learned that, or I started really applying a lot of it, was the Underground. And the Underground was a business conference for digital marketers to learn about what was going on, like I said, with people that were really doing it. But we'd have a spy theme, and it was fun. It was, we'd have a different spy theme each year. Sometimes I'd bring in an interesting celebrity. One year I brought in the guy that played James Bond for only one film, and I cannot remember his name now. But anyway, he was the cheapest Bond you could definitely buy because he only played Bond one time. And another time we brought in like Vern Troyer, who played Mini-Me, and we had like a really fun giveaway with like a Mini Cooper, like from Austin Powers and so forth. And so you want to create these fun environments, and it doesn't have to be so over the top like that. But the great thing about that, when you do create, we call it a sandbox. When you create these kind of like sandboxes or containers, people remember that. And there are so many times where people met and did really great joint projects or joint ventures or whatever came out, even friendships and lifelong friendships came out of it. They're like, I have to thank you because of the Underground. I met so-and-so. And I might not have even introduced them individually, but because they were in that environment that you could have that unique experience that created a new way to connect. And I love that. And a lot of businesses can use that. Like, it doesn't have to be over the top. But so in that framework for Evolved Enterprise, as I mentioned, was community. So instead of thinking about customers as just customers and transactions, Evolved Enterprise is about how to move from a transactional company to a transformational company to even transcending what business can be. And part of that is building a community of these essentially zealots and advocates for you who care deeply about your purpose and mission and who are all about whatever the ethos and values are that you put out. And part of that is, like you mentioned, these unique experiences is one of the ways of really building community.
Yeah, I love that. And I spend a lot of time thinking about that, how to create unique experiences. And I think the other element is, if you have the capacity to inject some sort of emotional engagement into those experiences, those connections happen faster, or people get repelled by each other one way or the other.
Yeah.
But if you're in an extreme situation, you either bond or push away.
Yeah. The extreme situations for sure. Like the great, you think about the great adventures that you have, or sometimes mishaps, that those turn into such great bonding opportunities. And if you create that, again, that backdrop for people, like it really drives it home. And the other thing that we really love too are like themes and like, sometimes we'll get dressed up in different things and take that really, really seriously. And it's like, it just brings people on the same level. Like, so it's not like, if somebody's dressed up as, I don't know, a pirate and someone else is a freaking dancing bear or whatever, and then they're having a serious conversation about what they can do to help the world or how they can work together. Like, it's so much fun to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And the through line is inspiring in general. To tell me, before we wrap here, tell me about the current project, where your focus is with that, because it's the same construct as what you've been focused on before, but it manifesting in a different way. So tell me about Evolved Enterprise and what you're doing with it. Because before we jumped on, we were talking about that element and how it pertains to my business in particular.
Yeah. So Evolved Enterprise was really, again, developed out of that, putting these pieces together as things are kind of going sideways. And then it's like, how do we move from a transactional to a transformational to a transcending company? And to me, there's a huge seismic shift happening right now. And the seismic shift is your consumers, buyers, I would say community wants to buy from a company that has deeper purpose and meaning behind it. So they were willing to change brands, or sometimes even willing to pay more for a company that has a greater purpose and meaning in what they're doing. So you're seeing this as a evolving trend. And it's not even a trend. It's like this seismic shift again. And then it's happening from the inside out is team, like, everyone talks about A players. Well, getting an A player is hard, there's a lot of places they can go work at, but if you have a deeper purpose and meaning, they want to work and help build that as well. So it's happening from the inside out and the outside in. And that's where Evolved Enterprise, I wrote the book a couple of years ago, and it's all about how businesses can have more impact, which actually drives their bottom line. So it's not about airy fairy, okay, we're gonna change the world, but it's gonna be at the result of our profits falling off. Like, to me, it's this interesting paradox. And very, it really connects way back to the very first sort of Venn diagram, right? Because the happier you are, the more impact you can be making, the more impact you're making, the more money you can be creating. So it actually, they all connect together. And so Evolved Enterprise gives you that framework for it, especially for entrepreneurs. There's been a lot written, let's say, conscious capitalism and triple bottom line and so forth. But a lot of that is for bigger companies. And where my focus has always been is that in the trenches entrepreneur, and how to apply some of this and really make it work. So it is a true competitive advantage, not a tactic, but something that you can really allow you to align your head, which is your business side, your heart, the impact that you want to make in the world, and then your higher purpose, like, why are you here? And so that's been this framework that entrepreneurs have been really excited by, because you don't have to be one way in business and then another way in your personal life, or another way that, like, the old paradigm was, I'm going to make a lot of money and then spend the second half of my life giving it away or trying to make good. And now the new way is like, how do we integrate it all? That's super exciting.
Yeah, I'm glad that you pulled that down to, top line or bottom line revenue and impact of the company, because it is easy to hear those things, and the notion of follow your heart and have it not hit home with entrepreneurs or a certain category of entrepreneurs, and have it sound, the language you used was airy fairy.
Yeah.
But I have a theme in my life, which is routinely, when I do something that feels like it's, over the top, nice, courteous, generous, to the point where the other party is like, oh, that's so nice. I'm like, no. Like, don't be confused. This isn't charity. I'm not doing this to be nice. This is fully self-serving. I'm doing this because it also helps the company be better, right?
Yeah.
If we have a win for the client, a win for the staff member, a win for the partner, it fuels the company and we grow in a better way.
Yeah. You have an example?
And to me, I think that we had sure, I do. We had a client a couple years ago who got hacked. We had nothing to do with it. But through this hack, by the way, this stuff happens all the time. We offer all sorts of fraud services for people, and you can turn these things on in the gateway to accept credit cards and control for this.
Yep.
People that are really aggressive marketers don't want to turn the filters on because it gets in the way. It creates friction for the buyer, right? Yep. So they refused to turn any fraud services on. And this attack resulted in hundreds of thousands of transactions, which resulted in transaction fees that are, to some extent, hard costs. So we had something like a $140,000 tab that got run up from this attack, which, by the way, anybody that's listening that has an e-commerce company, be aware of this stuff. The choice that I made ultimately was to absorb that cost as a company. And that's a huge dollar amount to just ingest and say, yep, we'll take care of it.
Yeah.
It wasn't our fault. And I'm not going to throw the business owner under the bus and say it was their fault, but they had control over it. We tried to preempt it, and I took it anyway. And part of that was, there's this, I can't pin that to exact ROI. What I can tell you is that it creates a better culture internally when staff sees that happen. It creates a raving fan from that person. It creates good word of mouth, and it creates goodwill, ultimately as a result. So I bit the bullet on it. And as a result, the other thing it created was a big lesson that we now turn all these fraud services on and set light parameters and have monitoring for this to proactively address that stuff, even if the business owner doesn't do it, doesn't want it, et cetera. We make sure that we have eyes on it on a routine basis, which other companies don't do. So there was a good learning lesson from it. But all that came from absorbing it.
Yeah, that's a great example. And I remember, my friend Tony Shea, who recently passed, but he would talk about opportunities at Zappos where the customer service team was empowered to do things that were above and beyond. And it would just create incredible goodwill. And that was part of the culture. And there was one story he loved talking about was a woman was like returning a pair of boots or something for, and the rep was like, well, why are you returning them? And it's like, well, my husband just died like a day ago or 2 days ago or something. And, I'm not going to be using this. So she took it upon herself to send flowers to the funeral and aside from, of course, returning the shoes and so forth. And it was just a massive amount of goodwill and just conversation that would happen because of that. And I know you said you can't pin the exact ROI on that, but that's probably a lifetime customer for you, like probably a raving fan, as you said. And, it also like when there's mistakes that happen, it's a great opportunity for companies to step up and turn it into learnings and cultural stories as well. And it's just, it's we don't want those kind of mistakes in our business or these things that cost us a bunch of money, but they turn into being really powerful culture stories for sure.
Yeah, no question about it. Okay, well, I know that we're coming up on time. Can you tell me real quick, or not real quick, I want to hear about, it's 2022, almost September, and one of the things that Evolved Enterprises does is help people with cost control. And one of the mechanisms there is the ERC credit. Can you give me, and you give me a picture of the cost control in general so people get it, but then also if you could tell me a little bit about the ERC credit, that'd be helpful.
Sure. Thanks, Brett. I think so. One of the companies that is kind of a sister organization is called Evolved Profits. And it came out of this idea of let's use some of the Evolved Enterprise principles to create expense reduction for companies. So I partnered with a guy who's been in this space for over a decade in the expense reduction world. And I brought him this idea of like, let's add an evolved part to it as well. And then let's also add an opportunity where it makes sense for others to get involved in it who have relationships at the C-level. And so we typically work with companies that are $20 million plus and find across the board about 18% of cost savings for them. And it's a 3-year renegotiation for the client. And for 2 years, we work on a success fee. So if we save you $1, we keep 50 cents and the client keeps 50 cents. But then in year 3, they keep all of it. And we also take 5% of that, put it into an impact pool, which is the evolved part of it. So the client looks good by either assigning it to a nonprofit or we work with them to create a bigger leverage point for their impact piece. And then another part of this that just recently sort of started coming up more was this evolvederc.com, which was the employee retention credit. So any company that held on to their employees during this pandemic were sometimes able to then recover a dollar amount up to $26,000 per employee that they held on to, and they have to meet certain parameters. This law has now changed 4 different times, so we have a team that was actually instrumental in helping develop that rule and the law. And then what we do is the same thing on a success basis, but a little bit different success fee. It's a 80-20. The client keeps 80%. And we've been able to recover over $31 million, I think, in the last couple of months. So all that goes back to the bottom line for these small business owners. And it's really powerful. And they don't have to be a $20 million company. You just have to have under 500 employees to qualify. And it takes just a few minutes to see if you qualify or not. And we do things very, very black and white. There's no gray in deciding if it works or not. And many times people have come to us and said, yeah, my CPA said we didn't qualify anymore because we got PPP money or we did this, but it's really worth still looking at it because of the expertise that we have here. And the same thing, we do 5%, but it's a little bit different where you can also apply it to all the team members that were retained, where they get almost like a gift card. And that gift card is then loaded with a certain amount of money based on that 5%. And then they can make the donation to whatever charity they care about. And there's 1.5 million charities in this program. So a cool way to make them look like a hero as well. So what we're always doing is making the client and company look like a hero, and then trying to apply some of these principles of how do we also make an impact and bake in that impact.
Yeah, I think that's super cool. It's super cool. The elements of the program are super cool, and it's timely right now. This won't last forever, but the ERC credit is relevant in 2022. Can you give any other bullets on what the parameters are or what bucket of people is eligible?
Yeah, so anyone has under 500 employees, and then really, if you were affected in some way by the shutdowns, it could be a supply chain issue, it could have been hours being cut, it could have been accessibility in some way. So it's not old, like there's a lot of parameters that we look at, and again, this team that we partner up with, they're a CPA firm and a law firm, and they will even represent you as a client all the way up, including an audit if it comes to it. So that's how assured they are of their work that they're doing, that it's on the right, straight and narrow of what would qualify. But the best thing, it's no cost to just check it out. So evolveerc.com, it's worth looking at it. Mention this the podcast for sure. We'll take good care of you. And it's something that's 100% worth looking at in your company, even if, again, you had someone say, no, you probably don't qualify because it's changed so much.
Well, that's great. And I think a note that is a takeaway for everybody is they'll follow it through to the audit. And anytime you are doing something and you're unsure if it's black or white from an IRS perspective or from a tax perspective, you need to be thinking about what does it look like in audit? And that's a lesson that applies across the board for anything that you're doing to try to reduce your taxes. The worst case scenario is audit. And so you need to think, how is an auditor going to look at this? So that assurance is super cool from this perspective. So it's, what was the website again?
Yeah, evolveerc.com.
Evolvederc.com. Awesome. Cool. Well, Yanik, I love talking to you, man. I always love getting time in with you. Antarctica was great. I'm looking forward to the next adventure. If people want to find out more about you or whatever you want to point them to, where do they go?
Yeah, if you're a 7, 8, or 9-figure entrepreneur who cares about growth, impact, and fun, definitely check out Maverick 1000, the number 1000.com, because the idea is one entrepreneur can change an industry, but 1,000 together can help change the world. And that's what we've been working on for about 14 years now. And we're ready to really ramp it up.
I love it. Well, anybody that does that, I'll probably see them on a future trip.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
Love it. Yanik, thanks so much for taking the time, man. It's great to see you.
Thanks, Brett. Yeah, it was fun.
If you learned one thing on this episode, share it with another entrepreneur. They need to hear it. Also subscribe so that new episodes just show up on your phone. It's a lot easier that way. And if you want the really good stuff, check out our free BAM! Tactics and Strategies course. It's where we curate the best tips, tricks, and tools that our guests know, whether they've shared them on the podcast or not. Just go to beyondamill.com. You'll also find previous episodes and show notes at beyondamill.com.